What if Ned Stark took the Black and named Jon Snow Lord of Winterfell, and the whole of the North rallied around Rhaegar's son? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. The morning comes grey over King's Landing. The crowd has been gathering since before the sun cleared the eastern hills, pressing in from Flea Bottom and the Street of Steel and the Street of Sisters, from every ward and alley the city holds, until the plaza, below the great sept of Baelor, is packed so tightly that people in the back rows have climbed onto windowsills and wagon beds just to see over the heads in front of them. There are tens of thousands of them. The sept rises over them all, its crystal dome catching the pale early light, its towers standing against the sky like hands raised in supplication, and every eye in the plaza is looking at the road that winds up from the Red Keep. Eddard Stark walks up the road in chains. He is lean, grey-eyed, dark-haired, and he carries the chains the way a man carries something he has decided to carry, without complaint and without expression, the weight acknowledged and borne. He has been in the black cells for weeks. The food down there is what it is, and the light is nothing. And somewhere in all that darkness, he made a decision. He is walking toward the platform at the foot of the great sept. He is going to say words he does not believe. He is going to do it in front of every lord and common man the capital can gather, and then he is going to the wall. The guards on either side of him are Lannister men, red and gold, and they keep him moving at a pace that is brisk enough to discourage the crowd from getting too long a look, but slow enough that everyone in the plaza can see exactly who this is. That is the point. The Lannisters understand that a public reckoning is worth more than a quiet one, and a living confession is worth more than a headless corpse, and Ned Stark, still breathing and humble, is worth more to them than Ned Stark, dead and mourned. His mind is not on the Lannisters. He is thinking about a room far from here, in a tower in Dorne 16 years ago. He is thinking about what was said to him in that room and what he promised in it. He has kept that promise through every hard thing that has followed. He is going to keep it today. Ned keeps his head up. He does not look at the crowd. Sansa Stark is standing near the front of it, close enough to the raised platform that she can see the lines on her father's face, and the fresh bruise still fading at his temple. She is 13 years old, and she has her mother's auburn hair braided back tight under the summer heat, and she is standing very straight because the Lannister women told her to stand straight, and she is not going to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break in public. She finds her father's eyes across the plaza. He finds hers. Neither of them shows anything. There is something passing between them in that look that does not need words and cannot use them, not here with 10,000 people watching and the whole of the court arrayed behind him. Ned holds her gaze for a long moment. Then he looks away. He looks at the platform. Sansa looks at the platform too. A herald is reading the charges. The list is long, and the herald has a carrying voice built for this kind of work, and the plaza goes quiet at the front and murmurs at the edges. Treason, conspiracy, plotting against the rightful king, bearing false witness about the king's own parentage. Each charge lands in the air and sits there. Ned stands with his hands loose at his sides and his face still, and he looks for all the world like a man who is somewhere else. Joffrey Baratheon is seated at the edge of the platform in a carved chair that was brought from the Red Keep for the occasion. He is 13, slight-shouldered, with his mother's golden colouring and a jaw that is set very tight right now. He is watching Ned with the eyes of a boy who has been given a great deal of power before he was ready for it, and has not yet worked out that these are not the same thing. Cersei Lannister stands behind his chair. She is very still. She is watching not the crowd, but Ned himself, with an expression that gives away nothing except the careful work of giving nothing away. The herald finishes. He asks if the Lord Eddard Stark has anything to say. Ned looks at Joffrey once, just once. Then he faces the crowd. He calls himself a traitor. He says his honor blinded him to his king's rightful claim. He says his ambition and his family's pride drove him to acts of conspiracy against the crown, and he was wrong to commit them, and he is wrong before all the gods for what he did. He says Joffrey Baratheon is Robert's son, lawful and true-born, and he urges every man and woman in the Seven Kingdoms to honor that. Every word is a lie. He knows it. Cersei knows it. Every soul on that platform who is not a fool knows it. It does not matter. The deal is the deal, and the deal keeps him alive. And alive means the wall, and the wall means Jon. Eddard Stark has spent a very long time in a very dark cell, deciding which things he is willing to say. Apparently these are some of them. When he finishes, there is silence. Joffrey rises from his chair. He is small standing, the way boys are before they grow into themselves, and the crown sits slightly too large on his head, and his hands are pressing flat against the fronts of his thighs. Something is moving in his face, something that wants very badly to give a different order than the one his mother has arranged. He is looking down at Ned with his bright, angry eyes, and his mouth is working like he is already saying the word, already calling for the king's justice, already doing the thing he wants to do. Cersei steps to him. Her hand closes on his arm. She speaks near his ear, very quietly, and she does not take her hand away. Joffrey's jaw tightens. He breathes out through his nose. Then he announces, in the high, clear voice of a boy who has been told his entire life that he is the most powerful person in any room he enters, that the traitor Eddard Stark will not be executed. His confession is accepted. In the king's mercy, his life will be spared. He will travel to the wall and take the black and serve out the rest of his days with the Night's Watch, far from the court and the throne he tried to steal. The crowd does not know what to do with this. Near the front, a few people cheer. A voice calls out that the king is just. A few others join it, uncertain, testing the words. Some of the people near Sansa say nothing at all, as though they are still waiting for something worse. Some of the lords on the platform exchange looks that carry a great deal of meaning between them, without anyone having to speak it aloud. Sansa breathes, just the one breath. She pulls it in and lets it out, slowly and quietly, and then she locks everything back inside where the Lannister women cannot see it. Her father is alive. He is going to the wall, which is cold and far and nothing like Winterfell, but it is not a grave. She can work with a world where her father is alive, and Jon is at the wall, and she is here. She does not know yet what working with it looks like, but she will figure it out the way she figures things out now, which is 1 hour at a time. She watches them lead him away from the platform, and she does not cry. At the edge of the platform, a broad-shouldered man who has been standing there since before the proceedings began has not moved. He is the king's justice. He came here prepared to do something that has not been asked of him today. The great sword ice, the ancestral blade of House Stark, is in Lannister custody, taken when the Stark household was seized. It does not come out today. There is no swing. There is only a man in a plain brown cloak being turned from the sept and walked through the crowd toward the road below. Ned does not look back at the platform. He passes through the plaza with his escort, close on either side, and the crowd parting ahead of him and closing behind, and he goes down from the hill, past the Street of Sisters and into the lower city, through the shadow of buildings he will not see again. He does not look at the red keep against the sky above Aegon's high hill. He does not look at the dragon pit on Rhaenys' hill, or at anything except the road ahead of him and the wall that waits at the end of it. Once, at the last turning before the river gate, he slows. The guards close in on either side. He is not running. They seem to understand this after a moment, and they ease back a half step. He turns and looks at King's Landing behind him. The towers and the smoke and the morning light on 10,000 rooftops. The city that has taken everything from him and given him this in return. He looks at it for a long moment. Then he turns his back on it and walks through the gate. And King's Landing is behind him, and the King's Road is ahead, and somewhere at the far end of it is the wall and what he has to do there, on the far edge of the crowd, near the mouth of an alley that runs off the Street of Sisters and back into the maze of Flea Bottom. A small figure in a dirty brown cloak stands very still with her back against the wall. Arya Stark is 10 years old. She has her father's dark hair and grey eyes, and a look on her face right now that her scepter would have called unladylike, and her father would have called determined. Under the cloak, her hand has not left the handle of needle since she got into position an hour ago. It is a thin blade, light and quick, exactly the right length for the arm that holds it. She hears the herald repeat the announcement for the streets behind her, where people could not see the platform. The traitor Eddard Stark will take the black. She does not move. She thinks about the river gate. She knows which road he will take. She knows how far back she could hang from his escort and still keep him in sight. For one long moment she can see the whole thing perfectly, the way she has always been able to see things perfectly when they are the wrong thing to do. She could be at that gate before the escort reached it. She could push through to him, and he would see her face, and he would know she was alive, and not lost somewhere in this city. She stays where she is. Because he is alive. Because he is going north. Because the King's Road runs north, and so does she when the time comes, and Jon Snow is at the wall, and her father is going to the wall, and she still has Needle, and she is still here, and she has not run out of moves yet. She turns and slips back into the alley. The city closes around her like a hand. The Raven reaches Robb Stark's camp on the eastern bank of the Trident, 2 mornings after it left King's Landing, dropping out of the grey sky into the hands of the host's Maester, and passing quickly from there into Catelyn's. She reads it alone in her tent, which is a habit she has developed since the war began. Important ravens get read first, by her, alone, so that she can decide how to present the contents before they become a crisis around a fire, so that she can manage what gets shown and what gets absorbed quietly. She has been a mother for 16 years and a lord's wife longer than that. She knows how to hold things together. She reads this one twice. Ned Stark is alive. He confessed his treason before the great sept of Baelor and all of King's Landing, and the king, in his mercy, has condemned him to the Night's Watch. He is going to the wall. He will take the black. He will hold no lands, take no wife, speak in no council of lords. He will become a brother of the Watch, and everything he has ever been will close behind him like a door. She sits with the letter in her hands and thinks about what alive means. It means he is breathing. It means the headsman's sword did not take his head on the steps of the great sept, which is the thing she has been waking from in the night for weeks, the thing she has been turning away from when it comes to her between one thought and the next. It means that somewhere on the King's Road, right now, her husband is still moving through the world. It does not mean he is coming home. She folds the letter and goes to find her son. Robb is at the water's edge, south of the main camp, standing where the bank slopes down to the river, with grey wind moving a slow circle around him. He is dark-haired like his father, and broad in the shoulder already, despite being 16, and he is watching the far bank the way he watches everything now, like there might be a threat in it if he looks away. Grey Wind pauses when he hears Catelyn coming, and then goes back to his pacing. She holds out the letter without saying anything. Robb reads it, standing up. He does not move while he reads. When he is done, he holds it at his side, and goes on watching the river. He's alive, he says. Yes. And he's going to the wall. Yes. He turns the letter over in his hand once. He looks at it, and then he looks at the river, and then he looks at her, with the same eyes his father has, grey and steady, except they are not quite his father's grey. They are the grey that belongs to a boy who has been learning very quickly what it costs to be right. We should talk to the lords, he says. The lords are already talking. By the time they reach the main fires, the news has moved through the camp ahead of them, passed from mouth to mouth, the way news does in a camp, gaining and losing detail with each telling. The commanders are gathered around the largest fire, and the argument is already running. He's alive, a voice says from the near edge of the group. That's the thing. He is alive. We rode south to get him out of that prison, and he is out of it, and the war is over. You want to tell that to the villages the Lannisters burned while we were riding south, says the big man across the fire. He is the largest of the commanders, broad-necked and loud, and he is not asking it as a question. You want to ride through the Riverlands and tell the small folk that the war they watched happen around them is finished because the hand of the king is alive and cold at the wall. That isn't what I said. It's what you meant. The argument spreads outward from there, the way arguments do in camps, until the fires along the bank have men around them saying different versions of the same things, and the sound of it carries over the river in the quiet air. Some of them are glad. A man living is always better than a man dead, and there are enough dead already. Some of them are angry in the specific way of men who have been fighting a just war and are not ready to stop finding it just. Catelyn says nothing. She stands at the edge of the fire, and she lets the argument run, and she watches her son. Robb is listening. He has one hand on Grey Wind's neck, and the dire wolf is still for once, pressed against his leg. And Robb is listening to every voice around the fire with the particular focus of a boy who has learned that the lords he commands will not simply follow him because he is who he is. He has to earn it every day. He earned some of it at the Whispering Wood when he captured Jaime Lannister in the dark, and some more of it at the camps when he drove the Lannister force back from the river. And now he has to earn it again in a different way. He holds up his hand, and the fire goes quiet. My sister is still in King's Landing, he says. She is 13 years old, and she is a hostage of the crown, and she is not free, and she is not coming home. The Lannisters are still burning houses in the Riverlands. Tywin Lannister's host is still in the field west of the Trident. He pauses. And Joffrey Baratheon is still sitting on the Iron Throne. My father spent his life in a dungeon, and then his name on the steps of the Great Sept to tell the world who put him there. None of that goes away because he is alive. The big man across the fire nods once, slowly. The other man says nothing more. We keep fighting, Robb says, until we have something worth stopping for. It is not the speech of a boy. Catelyn watches her son and feels something she cannot quite name, which is pride and grief together, the way they are always together now, inseparable since the moment the raven from King's Landing arrived the first time and said that Ned had been arrested. Meanwhile, off the eastern coast of the continent, in a black stone castle that smells of the sea and sulphur, another man is sitting alone with the same news. Stannis Baratheon reads the Raven at the painted table. He is 35 years old, and he has been sitting with the question of his brother's throne for longer than he can account for, and he has the look of a man who has been doing that, which is to say the look of a man whose patience has been ground down until what remains is something harder than patience, and colder than it too. He sets the message on top of the stone map. Eddard Stark at the wall. He turns this over, the way he turns everything, methodically, extracting the implications. He has already written to every great lord in the realm declaring Joffrey illegitimate. He has already named himself the rightful king. He knows what he knows about Cersei's children and who their father is, and the truth of it is as true now as it was last month. What is different now is Ned Stark. The former hand of the king was the man who had stood in the capital and looked at the evidence and arrived at the same answer Stannis arrived at years before. He had the authority of the position. He had the credibility of his name, which in the north and the Riverlands and the Vale is worth more than almost anything else in the world. He was going to speak to it in public, before lords and small folk and history, and now he is going to the wall, and sworn black brothers hold no titles, speak in no councils, and carry no political weight in the courts of the Seven Kingdoms. His testimony dies with his titles. Stannis picks up the message again and looks at it for a long moment. Then he sets it aside and puts his hands flat on the surface of the map, and he looks at the whole of the realm spread out in stone before him, and he starts again from a different beginning. On the road through the western Riverlands, a small man on a large horse is making his way toward the Lannister host with a company of hill country fighters at his back. Tyrion Lannister is 26 years old, and he has recently survived a sky cell and a trial by combat, and a walk through mountains full of people who wanted to kill him, and he is in a reasonable mood despite all of it. He learns about Ned Stark from a Lannister outrider heading the other way. The man tells him in brief, factual terms. The former hand confessed. The king spared his life. He's going to the wall. Tyrion thanks him and rides on. He thinks about it as the smoke of his father's camp comes into view on the valley's far side, the red and gold of Lannister banners catching the last of the day's light. Ned Stark alive and taking the black, Joffrey with his mercy on display, Cersei with her hands on the aftermath of a trap she set carefully and watched spring in a direction nobody planned for. And still, somewhere east of here, a 16-year-old with his father's war in his hands and his mother's stubborn streak and a Valyrian steel sword in a cage waiting to go home. He is not sure this is simpler. He rides into his father's camp and sends for wine. The night on the eastern bank of the Trident comes down cold for the season, and by the time the fires are burning well, Catelyn Stark is sitting alone beside the one outside her tent, her hands around a cup she has not touched in some time. The camp has gone quiet the way camps go quiet, not empty but contained, the voices closer to the ground. The argument from earlier has burned itself out, or moved indoors, or turned into the particular silence of men who have decided what they are doing and stopped discussing it. Robb is somewhere to the south, speaking with the lords whose men have been pressing for resupply. She is thinking about the King's Road. It runs north from King's Landing, through the Riverlands, and past the Neck, through the whole of the north to Castle Black, and somewhere on it right now a man is walking. He is alive. He is moving through the same world she is in, the same air, the same turning of the season, and she will never see him the way she used to see him, standing in the hall at Winterfell with snow on his boots, looking at her the way he has always looked at her, like she is the fixed point and everything else moves. She stares at the fire. She does not sleep for a long time. The King's Road going north gets colder with every day. Ned Stark rides it in chains, in plain wool, between Lannister guards who haven't spoken to him since King's Landing. He has ridden this road many times before, with banners and riders and the weight of the North behind him, as Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North and Hand of the King. He rides it now with nothing. The road is the same road, and everything else is different. By the time the escort passes through the neck and into the true north, the cold has a particular quality it only has here, sharper and cleaner than the south, and the trees go dark, and the sky goes low, and the days get short, and Ned watches it come the way a man watches something he has been away from too long. He has time to think. He uses the time to think about one thing: Jon. He has been rehearsing what he will say since the Black Cells, when there was nothing to do but think. There is no way to say what he needs to say easily. He has searched for one for 16 years. He is going to say it anyway, because he is going to the wall, and the oath is waiting at the wall, and once he speaks, the oath he will have nothing left to give, and no words left to give with it. Castle Black appears late in the afternoon of the 7th day, grey and settled in the shadow of the wall. The wall is simply enormous, the kind of enormous the mind accepts only reluctantly. 700 feet of ice running east and west until it curves away with the world. Ned looks up at it from the rise. Then he looks at the yard below. There is a boy in the yard. He is training against a post, running through the same form over and over, dark-haired and lean with grey eyes, and the focused patience of someone who has decided to be very good at something. The sword is a bastard sword with a white wolf's head pommel. He moves the way Ned has always moved, without waste, every motion going exactly where it needs to go. The escort starts down the road. Jon sees them coming. He sees the Lannister colours first and goes still. Then he looks at the man in the centre of the escort and starts walking towards the gate. And it is not a run. Brothers of the Watch do not run across yards, but it is also not a walk. It is the stride of a 16-year-old who is choosing, very deliberately, not to run, each step long and controlled until the gate is between them. Mormont is at the top of the steps, watching. He has the look of a man who has been waiting. The head of the escort speaks to him directly. He has terms. The oath, witnessed, before the garrison, promptly. Mormont looks at the man for a moment. "He'll have his oath," he says. "Your horses can be watered on the east side. You'll leave in the morning." "The order was, 'This is my castle,'" Mormont says, and turns away from him. He gives Ned 1 hour. He calls it a formality, the same formality Mormont himself exercised years ago when he gave up Bear Island, named his son its lord, and walked away. A man has the right to set his house in order before the oath takes him. This has always been how it is done. Jon is brought to the small room off the main hall, where a fire is already burning. The chains come off. Ned stands in the middle of the room and looks at Jon across the short distance between them. Jon speaks first. "How are you still alive?" he says. "It is not quite a question. I said what they needed me to say." "Did you mean any of it?" "No." Jon looks at him. He puts Longclaw down against the wall with care, like he is setting aside something he might need in a moment. He folds his arms. "What is it?" he says. "There's something you need to tell me." "Yes," Ned says. "Sit down. I've been carrying it since before you were born, and I can't carry it any further." Jon sits. Ned tells him the truth about Lyanna, not the version the realm tells, the version only Ned knows. She did not run from Rhaegar Targaryen. She chose him. She ran away with him of her own will, and Rhaegar had already set aside his marriage to Elia Martell and wed Lyanna before a heart tree with a septon for witness. They were married in the sight of gods. Jon was not the son of a bastard union. Then he tells him about the tower. After the war, he rode south with 6 men to find her, because she had disappeared, and he needed to know. 3 knights of the King's Guard were waiting at the foot of a tower in the Mountains of Dawn, and they would not let anyone pass. The fight was hard, and most of the men who rode with Ned didn't come back from it. He climbed the stairs and found Lyanna in a room full of blood, dying hard from a birth that had gone wrong, and she put a newborn boy into his arms and said 2 things before she was gone. The name. And she said, "Promise me, Ned." Jon is very still during all of this. When Ned finishes speaking, there is silence. "What name?" Jon says. "Aegon," Ned says. "Aegon Targaryen. Your mother named you before she died. Your father was Rhaegar Targaryen, Prince of Dragonstone. Your mother was Lyanna Stark of Winterfell. They were married, and you are their true-born son, and you haven't been a bastard for a single day of your life." Jon looks at the fire for a moment. "I am Jon Snow," he says. "I gave you that name to keep you alive. Robert Baratheon hated every living thing that shared your father's blood. He would have killed a boy in a cradle to protect the story he built on your mother's death. So I brought you home and said you were mine, and I let everyone believe it. And I have been sorry every day for what I let you carry because of it." Jon's jaw tightens. "You let Lady Catelyn hate me for 16 years. Yes. You let me grow up thinking I had no mother, that you were too ashamed of what you'd done to give her a name." "Yes," Ned says it quietly. "I know what I let happen. I am not asking you to forgive it. I am asking you to hear it." The fire pops. Neither of them moves for a moment. "Your father had silver hair," Ned says. "He played the harp, and everyone who ever heard him said it was beautiful, and he believed he was born to a purpose larger than himself. He was not wrong about that, only wrong about what it was. And your mother was the wildest thing in the north when she was alive. She had your look around the eyes, the same way of being still when she was deciding something. She chose your father and she chose you, and I made a promise to her at the foot of her bed, and I kept it until now." Jon looks at him. His eyes are grey, and his hair is dark, and he looks nothing like the silver-haired prince his father was, and Ned is glad for it. He is a Stark, whatever else he is. He has always been a Stark. "I already swore," Jon says. "My oath, at the weirwood north of the wall, before the old gods. I said I would hold no lands." "You swore as Jon Snow." "I swore." "You swore under a name that does not exist," Ned says. "Jon Snow is a bastard name I invented for a boy who was never a bastard. The person who stood at that tree and spoke those words was Aegon Targaryen, and Aegon Targaryen has sworn nothing. The Watch holds men by their oaths, and the oath belongs to the man who gave it. And the man was a fiction I made to protect you. I will not leave you trapped here under a fiction I made." Jon is quiet for a long moment. "And Mormont agrees with this," he says. "He will," Ned says. "He did the same thing himself." Ned calls for Mormont. The old lord comes back with 2 brothers of the Watch as witnesses, and they stand at the corners of the room, and the fire burns low, and Ned stands at the center and speaks the words he has been keeping. He names the parentage in full: Aegon Targaryen, legitimate son of Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, and Lady Lyanna Stark of Winterfell, born at the Tower of Joy in Dorne in the 283rd year after Aegon's conquest. He describes the marriage before the Heart Tree and the Septon who witnessed it, and the annulment of Rhaegar's prior marriage that made it lawful. He names Jon Snow by his true name, Lord of Winterfell, in Ned's own stead, by the right of a lord to set his house in order, before the oath removes him from it. Mormont watches. He says nothing. Then Ned turns back to the brothers, and he says the oath. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. It shall not end until my death. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. I shall live and die at my post. I am the sword in the darkness. I am the watcher on the walls. I am the shield that guards the realms of men. I pledge my life and honor to the Night's Watch, for this night and all the nights to come. He says every word of it. When it is done, the room is quiet. He is no longer Eddard Stark of Winterfell. He holds nothing, and he rules nothing, and there are no more words he can give. He looks at Jon once, and Jon is looking back at him with those grey, stark eyes, and there is too much between them to say in a room with 3 witnesses. Ned nods once. He walks out. Jon stands in the empty room for a moment. Then he goes out into the yard. Ghost is waiting at the door, folded down on the cold stone, white and utterly still, his red eyes looking up without question. Jon crouches and puts a hand on the direwolf's neck, and Ghost does not move. The wall stands to the north of the castle, filling the sky. In the rookery above, a raven shifts in its cage. Jon can hear it between the sounds of the yard, that low, restless sound they make when they want to go. It is waiting for a letter Mormont will write before the night is out, with a name on it that no one in the north has heard yet. The letter will fly south and west and north again, to every castle and keep the raven roads can reach. And when the lords of the north open it and read it, they will have to decide what it means to them. Jon does not know yet what he is. He knows the raven is ready. The ravens go out just before dusk. Mormont comes to the rookery himself. He has a steward who handles the birds in the ordinary course of things, an efficient man who manages the flow of messages between the wall and the lords of the realm without needing to be told how. But not today. Today the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch sits at the rookery table alone, with a candle and a pot of ink, and writes each letter with his own hand, one after another, the same words in each one. And when a letter is done, he blots it, rolls it, ties it to a bird, and releases the bird into the cold air above the castle. He sends 12, one to each great house of the north, the lords of the valleys and the mountains and the eastern shore, the crannogmen in the neck, the men of the last hearth, and the Dreadfort and Bear Island. One to Robb Stark's camp in the Riverlands. The letters carry a single declaration, sworn by Eddard Stark before the Lord Commander as witness. The name and parentage of Jon Snow. Born Aegon Targaryen. Named Lord of Winterfell by the right of a lord, to set his house in order before the oath takes him. When the last bird goes, Mormont sits with his hands flat on the table and watches it disappear into the south. Then he blows out the candle and walks back downstairs, and the rookery is empty, and the birds are gone. Jon watches them from the training yard. He has Long Claw on his hip and Ghost at his feet, and he is standing in the middle of the yard looking south, watching the 12 birds spread out from the rookery tower and find their separate courses. And he thinks, 12 lords will open 12 letters and read his name and decide what to do with it. He does not know yet what any of them will decide. He is 16 years old. He goes over what he knows, the way he goes over a sword form, one step at a time, checking each part for correctness. His mother was Lyanna Stark, Ned's youngest sister, who died at 17 in a tower in Dorne after giving birth to him. His father was Rhaegar Targaryen, the crown prince who died at the Ruby Ford before Jon was old enough to know what a father was. They were married in secret, which makes him not a bastard, which makes the name Jon Snow a costume he has been wearing his entire life without knowing it was a costume. He has been Jon Snow since the day he was born. He has no other self to be. Ghost shifts against his leg. The direwolf is white as new snow and absolutely still, except for the red eyes, which are looking up at Jon with that particular quality Ghost has of seeing things that are not quite on the surface. "I know," Jon says, which is not true. One of the older brothers crosses the yard toward him. He is a grizzled man, not unkind, and he stops a few feet away and looks at the sky. "The old bear's been up in the rookery for an hour," the man says. "He has. Sending letters on your behalf, from what I hear." The man glances at him sidelong, measuring. "Is it true what they're saying about who you are?" "I don't know yet what I am," Jon says. The brother is quiet a moment. "You leaving, then?" Jon watches the last of the 12 birds disappear into the grey horizon to the south. He has been at the wall for months. He knows the brothers by face and by name. He knows every step of the yard he is standing in, every timber in the common hall, the way the wind sounds at night when it comes over the top of the ice above them. He knows this place. He knows it better than he knows the name that was just given back to him. Ghost presses his great white head into Jon's hip, heavy and solid and warm. "The old bear's great ranging is coming," the brother says. "He won't want to lose you before it." "I know," Jon says. The man nods and walks away, and Jon stands in the yard until the dark comes down over the wall and the cook fires start up inside the castle. Meanwhile, far to the south, in the castle that the letter is flying toward, a different boy is sitting in a godswood. Bran has been in the godswood most of the afternoon. He cannot walk, which means he goes where summer takes him, and summer today has brought him here, to the clearing where the heart tree grows with its bone-white bark and its carved face weeping slow red sap in the cold air. Summer lies pressed against his side, warm and grey, and Bran has been sitting in the particular quiet of the godswood that feels less like silence and more like listening. The Maester finds him there when the raven arrives. He reads the letter aloud in a careful voice, pacing through it sentence by sentence, and Bran listens without moving. The heart tree's carved face looks over both of them, its red sap catching what light is left in the sky. When the Maester finishes reading, Bran doesn't say anything for a moment. "Read it again," Bran says. The Maester reads it again. "Thank you," Bran says. The Maester goes back to the keep. Bran sits with Summer in the empty godswood and looks at the face in the bark. He has known something about Jon for as long as he can remember, without knowing what that something was. There has always been a strangeness to Jon that didn't fit the story everyone told. Ned's bastard, born outside the marriage, unnamed mother, unwanted at feasts and kept at the edge of things. Bran never quite believed that story. Not entirely, though he could not have explained why. It was the same feeling he gets sometimes in his dreams, the sense of something watching from very far away, patient and old, through the roots of the world. The dreams have been coming more often lately. He does not fully understand what they are showing him. He knows only that the things in them are true. Jon is Lyanna's son. He turns it over, sitting still, while Summer breathes steadily beside him. He thinks about Jon in the yard at Winterfell, spinning him up onto his shoulders when Bran was small enough to fit up there. He thinks about how Jon always sat on the edge of the high table at feasts, neither quite inside the family nor quite outside it. He thinks about the look Jon got when someone used the word bastard in front of him, the way his face went very still and he said nothing, because Jon had always known how to carry difficult things quietly. Now that Bran knows the reason, the look makes a different kind of sense. And now Jon is at the wall, in black, and their father is at the wall in black, and Winterfell is almost empty. Summer lifts his head. Rickon comes into the Godswood at a run, with Shaggy Dog black and quick behind him, and stops short when he sees Bran's face. What happened? A raven came, Bran says. About Jon. Rickon looks at him. He is 4 years old, and the parts of the letter that matter are complicated in ways that 4-year-olds cannot hold, but he understands the thing underneath all the complications. Is Jon coming home? He asks. Bran looks at the heart tree for a moment. Maybe soon, he says. We'll see. Rickon accepts this with the dissatisfaction of a child who wanted a better answer, and Shaggy Dog nudges his hand, and they go back toward the keep together, and Bran is alone again, with Summer, and the carved face, and the dark. That evening at Castle Black, Jon finds Ned sitting on a bench at the base of the wall. He is already in black, his cloak and his tunic the black of the Night's Watch, and the wall rises behind him, 700 feet of ancient ice, and the cold comes off it like breath. He is 36 years old, and he looks like a man who has put down something he has been carrying for a very long time and is still adjusting to walking without it. Jon sits beside him, and neither of them speaks for a while. You are more Stark than Targaryen, Ned says at last, whatever the name says. You grew up in the north. You know what it is to be cold and to be honest, and to stand in a hard place and not move. That is what you are. Be what you always were. I don't know what I always was, Jon says. I thought I did. You were a good man learning to carry difficult things quietly, Ned says. That doesn't change because I've changed the name on it. Jon looks at the wall for a while. The ice groans somewhere far above them, that slow, deep sound it makes when it settles. Winterfell needs someone, Ned says. Bran is 9 years old and cannot walk. Robb is in the field in the south and not coming home soon. The castle is thin, a handful of men and 2 children, and whatever's left of the garrison. If something comes at it from the outside, there is no one to answer. Jon looks at his hands. He thinks about Winterfell, the Godswood, the training yard, the long stone corridors where he grew up knowing which rooms he was welcome in and which he was not. The great hall where he always sat too far down the table. You want me to go back to the castle I grew up in as a bastard and be its lord, he says. I want you to go back to the castle where you belong, Ned says, and be what you were always supposed to be. Jon does not answer. Above them the wall stands in the dark, cold and absolute, pressing its weight against the sky. He is 16 and he has a name he does not know how to wear, and a castle he does not know how to hold, and Mormont's great ranging is coming, and somewhere past the ice, something is waking up. I'll think on it, he says. Ned nods, and they sit in the cold a while longer before the bell calls them inside. The letter from Castle Black arrives at dusk, carried by a rider who came hard from the last Maester's castle, and arrived at camp with a horse that was done. A steward brings it to Catelyn's tent. She thanks him, sends him away, and reads it alone. She reads it standing up the first time, and then she sits down on the edge of her cot and reads it again. Ned has taken the black. Before he swore, he made a declaration before the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, witnessed by 2 brothers of the Watch. The parentage of Jon Snow, born Aegon Targaryen, legitimate son of Prince Rhaegar Targaryen and Lady Lyanna Stark of Winterfell, born at the Tower of Joy in Dawn. Rhaegar had set aside his marriage to Elia Martell and wed Lyanna in a secret ceremony before a heart tree. Ned names the boy Lord of Winterfell in his own stead before the oath removes him from the world. She holds the letter in her lap, and she is very still for a long time. 16 years. She counts them the way you count something you would rather not count. 16 years of Jon Snow at the end of the high table, just far enough down that no one had to decide whether he belonged at it. 16 years of asking Ned, carefully at first and then not at all, because the way his face went quiet when she asked was worse than having no answer. 16 years of telling herself that she had forgiven him the way a woman forgives a husband's worst fault, incompletely, privately, in the middle of the night when she was too tired to do otherwise. Jon Snow is not Ned's bastard. He never was. She had imagined, sometimes, what it would feel like to know that. She had thought the feeling would be relief. There is relief. It comes first, clean and sudden, a loosening of something that has been clenched in her chest for so long she had stopped noticing it. Jon is not the proof of Ned's infidelity. He is not that. He is not what she thought. He is Lyanna's son. She says it in her mind, and it lands differently than she expected. She never met Lyanna Stark. Lyanna died in 283 AC, and Catelyn came to Winterfell not long after, and the timing of those 2 events has always seemed to her like a door she was never allowed to open. She knows Lyanna only through Ned's silences, through the way he stopped talking whenever her name came up, the particular careful quality of that stopping. She knows that Ned loved his sister, the way a man loves something he could not protect, with the kind of grief that does not talk about itself, because talking would not contain it. She knows now that Ned brought Lyanna's boy home and called the boy his own, and let everyone believe the worst thing, because the worst thing kept the boy alive. She is not certain that she forgives him for it. The anger comes next, which she was also expecting, though she had not expected how specific it would be. She was cold to a child for 16 years. She did it deliberately. She told herself she was protecting her own children's inheritance, protecting her own dignity, protecting the image of the husband she had chosen. She was cold to a child who had done nothing, because Ned chose his sister's dying wish over his wife's peace of mind, and Ned will not be here for her to tell him what that cost. He is at the wall. He has taken the oath. She cannot even be angry at him in the way that requires him to listen. She folds the letter and goes to find Robb. He is at the horse line on the camp's south side, dark-haired and tall already for 16, with grey wind moving a circuit around him. He comes to her when he sees her face, and she gives him the letter, and he reads it. He reads it twice, the way he reads everything that matters, standing at the edge of the camp with the fires behind him and the dark river ahead, and grey wind sits beside him and watches his profile and does not move. "Jon," Robb says when he finishes the second reading. "Yes." He looks at the letter. He's the Lord. Father named him. "Yes." Robb is quiet for a moment. He has his father's colouring and his mother's eyes, blue and careful, and right now they are doing the particular work those eyes do when he is calculating something he does not want to get wrong. I need to tell the commanders, he says. The telling goes badly, and then goes well, and then goes badly again. The commanders gather at the main fire, and the letter is read aloud, and the reaction divides immediately between those who accept it without question and those who cannot accept it at all. Ned Stark's word, says a voice from the right of the fire. That's all I need. If Ned Stark swears a thing before the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, it is true. I don't need anything else. He's a sworn Black brother now. A harder voice from the left. A big man, broad through the shoulder, who has been angry since the day he crossed the neck, and has not stopped being angry. His word counts for nothing in a court of lords. This isn't a court of lords. Then why are we treating it like a legal document? The big man looks around the fire. We rode south because a Targaryen prince stole a Stark girl. Our fathers died for it. Robert Baratheon put on a crown over it. And now we're told she wasn't stolen. She chose him. She ran away and married him, and bore his son and died for it. His voice has gone very flat. What does that make the dead? What does that make the war? What does it make us? No one answers. Catelyn has been standing back, watching the fire and the faces around it, and she had intended to let the argument run its course. But the question is sitting in the air like something alive, and the silence is the wrong kind of silence, the kind that says the question has landed and no one knows what to do with it. She steps forward. It makes them men who loved a Stark woman and could not protect her, she says. That is what it has always made them. Lyanna Stark was a Stark of Winterfell. She was taken from the north, and she died in the south, and she did not come home. Those facts do not change, because she had a choice in how some of it happened. The loss is the same. The grief is the same. She looks at the big man, and she does not look away. Jon Snow is Lyanna Stark's son. He was born in her blood and raised in this family's castle, and he is 16 years old, and he has never in his life been anything but a boy from Winterfell who happened to carry a name nobody wanted him to have. Eddard Stark named him Lord before witness, at the wall, with the oath already waiting. If you won't take Ned Stark's word, tell me whose word you will take. The big man says nothing. The other men around the fire say nothing. Robb waits a beat, and then he speaks. I'm not going to be proclaimed king in the north, he says. The camp goes quieter than it was before. Jon Snow is the Lord of Winterfell. He was named Lord by the man who held the seat before him. The king in the north has always meant the man who holds Winterfell, and the man who holds Winterfell is Jon, and I am not going to put a crown on my head that belongs to him. I'm commanding this army. I'll keep commanding it. We fight until Sansa comes home, and the Lannisters are out of the Riverlands, and we have something we can actually stop for. But I'm a general, not a king. No one argues with it, which surprises Catelyn a little. She had thought the lords would push, but Robb says it with the particular stillness he has been growing into since the war started, the stillness of someone who has already decided and is only telling them the result, and the men around the fire seem to feel the difference between being asked and being told. The fire burns. The camp settles. Elsewhere in the camp, in the tent where Jaime Lannister has spent his captivity since the Whispering Wood, the prisoner has been listening. Sound travels in camps. He has learned this about being a prisoner. You learn which voices carry and which do not, and you learn to put the pieces together with what you can hear. And after a while, you know most of what is happening, whether anyone tells you or not. He lies on his cot with his hands behind his head, both of them still intact, and he turns the information over in his mind. Lyanna Stark's boy. Ned's declaration. A Targaryen name in the north. He says to the guard at the entrance, "You should think about sending a rider south. My father's going to want to know about this." The guard does not answer. Jaime thinks about his father reading that letter. He thinks about the very specific expression that will appear on Tywin Lannister's face when he understands what it means. And despite everything, he finds that he is almost smiling. Cersei Lannister reads The Raven from Castle Black in her solar, alone, in the early morning, while the Red Keep is still quiet. She reads it once. She sets it on the table. She reads it again. She sent Ned Stark to the wall to be done with him. That was the logic of it. A confession, a black cloak, and the most dangerous man in the realm becomes a crow who holds no lands, and speaks in no court, and freezes quietly at the edge of the world until he dies. She had pulled Joffrey back from the edge at the Great Sept with that logic in her mind, and it had worked, and the Stark problem was finished, and she had looked forward to the north, losing its appetite for a war fought on behalf of a man who had just publicly called himself a traitor. Instead, Ned Stark walked to the wall and declared a Targaryen heir on the way. She reads the letter one more time. Jon Snow, born Aegon Targaryen, legitimate son of Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark, married before a heart tree, witnessed by a septon, named Lord of Winterfell by his uncle's declaration, before witnesses, before the oath could stop it, the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch standing there. The Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, watching Ned Stark give away the North before he disappeared into the black. She puts the letter down. With Ned Stark, there had been a deal to make. He was a threat with a solution attached. Put him on the wall and the solution worked. Jon Snow is a threat with no deal attached. He is not a man she can send anywhere. He is already in the North, and the North is already hearing his name. And there is no accommodation available here that does her any good. She has to destroy the claim before it grows. She goes to Joffrey. He is in the training yard, running forms with a sword he is too young to use well. He is 13, and the crown is on a hook in the armory while he trains, and without it, he looks like what he is, which is a boy who is very angry about something and is working it out against a practice post. He has his mother's golden coloring, and none of her patience. She tells him about the letter. His face goes very still, and then very bright, and then very ugly in that order. The way his face goes when someone has done something he cannot punish immediately. "Send an army north," he says. "We have 3 armies to manage right now," Cersei says. "Robb Stark in the Riverlands, your uncle Stannis at Dragonstone, and now this. Send a killer then, a quiet one." Getting to the boy requires the King's Road, which runs through the Riverlands, which is Robb Stark's camp. She says this carefully, the way she says things to him when his mind is going fast in the wrong direction. There is a better way to handle it. "Leave it with me." He looks at her the way he looks at things he is not allowed to hit. "Leave it with me," she says again, and goes back inside. Tyrion arrives 2 days later, earlier than she expected, and later than she needed. He comes riding through the King's Gate with Hill Tribe clansmen at his back and a sellsword at his side, and he walks into the throne room with the particular expression he wears when he knows something and is deciding whether he will enjoy telling it. She waits for him to sit down. He already has the letter. "Ned Stark," he says, settling into a chair with his wine. "Made a confession, went to the wall, and in between, those 2 things managed to start a 4th problem. Very thorough of him." "You said 3 problems," Cersei says. "I'm adding this one. Robb Stark in the Riverlands, Stannis at Dragonstone, and now a Targaryen name with Stark blood behind it rallying the North. He counts them on his fingers. 3 was already a great many. Littlefinger is in the chamber, near the window, in the way he is always near windows. He has been there long enough that Cersei has stopped noticing when he arrived. "The claim can be attacked," he says, a bastard-named man, claiming Targaryen legitimacy on the word of a condemned black brother. The annulment of a royal marriage is a matter for the High Septon, and there is no High Septon's record of any such annulment. The ceremony was secret. The Septon who witnessed it is dead. A sworn brother of the Night's Watch carries no legal standing before any court in the realm. He folds his hands. The lords of Westeros are not going to simply accept this story. We make sure of that. "And the lords of the North?" Tyrion asks. "Are a different problem," Littlefinger says. "They might?" Tyrion nods. He looks at Cersei. The answer to the lords of the North is not an army. Moat Cailin sits at the only land crossing into the north, the causeway through the neck, with swamp on both sides that no army can cross without using the road. The ruin still has 3 towers standing: the Children's Tower, the Gatehouse Tower, the Drunkard's Tower. 100 men in those towers can hold 10,000 on the road below them for as long as they have food and arrows. He drinks from his cup. You cannot take the north. Not with swords. No one ever could. You fight the claim with doubt, not with swords. Cersei looks at both of them. She does not have to like either option to recognize that the room has already decided. "Then start working on the doubt," she says. Meanwhile, far to the east on a volcanic island in the Blackwater Bay, Stannis Baratheon is standing at the painted table with the same letter. He has been standing there for some time. The stone map of Westeros is spread out below his hands, the whole of the realm in carved relief, every castle and harbour and mountain range that Aegon's descendants ever claimed. He reads the letter a second time, and then a third, and when he is done, he puts it on top of the Crown lands, which is where it belongs, geographically, and he looks at the map. The law is not ambiguous. He has never found the law ambiguous when he cared to read it. If the declaration is true, if Rhaegar Targaryen genuinely set aside his first marriage and wed Lyanna Stark and the boy born of it is legitimate, then that boy's claim to the Iron Throne is superior to Stannis' own. Rhaegar was his brother's heir. The heir's legitimate firstborn child outranks the heir's younger brother in every line of succession Westeros recognizes. Stannis is a younger brother of a dead king. The boy is the Crown Prince's son. The precedence is not even close. He understands this without pleasure. He picks up the letter again. The declaration rests on an annulment with no official record. It rests on a ceremony with no living witnesses. It rests on the sworn word of a man who is now a black brother, and sworn black brothers carry no standing before any court of lords in the realm. The claim is not a legal fact. It is a story someone is telling. Until it is proven, before a High Septon, before a Council of Lords, with evidence that can be challenged and verified in an accepted legal forum, it has no force. The claim is unproven. Stannis sets the letter aside. He is the rightful king. The boy in the north will have to find a court to press his case in, and until he does, there is nothing to respond to. Stannis returns to the papers on his table. The fleet dispositions, the supply lists, the arrangements for the campaign, and gives the claim no further thought that night, or tries not to. The days after the oath feel different. Not worse exactly, just different in the way that time moves differently when you are waiting for yourself to decide something. Jon performs his duties. He sharpens blades in the armory and carries messages for Mormont, and helps with the evening accounts and does every task a steward is supposed to do, and he does them without speaking more than he has to, and the men around him give him space the way men give space to someone who is thinking through something hard. He sits with long claw across his knees in the evenings, after the duties are done, and he goes over the oath. He knows it by heart. He has known it since before he swore it, the way you know a thing that has always felt inevitable. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. It shall not end until my death. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. He said those words at a weirwood tree, just north of the wall, in the cold, with the pale bark and the carved face watching. He said them before the old gods, because the old gods were his gods, and the wall was the place he had chosen, and the watch was the thing he was going to be. He said them as Jon Snow. He said them 3 weeks ago, and now someone is telling him Jon Snow does not exist. He goes to find Ned. Ned is at the base of the wall, where the ice meets the stone of the castle's outer yard, sitting on the bench he has claimed since his oath was sworn. He is in black, the black of the watch, which suits him the way it suits men who have always been serious, removing the question of whether to take them seriously. Jon sits beside him without asking permission, and for a while neither of them says anything. Above them, the wall grinds, one slow ice sheet settling against another, a sound like the world breathing. I swore, Jon says, before the old gods. You swore as Jon Snow, Ned says. That is what I'm saying. I swore, whatever name I used. Ned is quiet for a moment. Jon Snow is a name I invented, he says. I invented it to protect a boy who was in danger from a king who hated his father's blood. I chose it. You didn't. You were brought home as Jon Snow, and you lived as Jon Snow because I needed you to be Jon Snow, not because that was what you were. He pauses. The oath you swore was sworn by a fiction I made. You're saying the fiction swore the oath, not me. I'm saying the oath belongs to the man, and the man was never the name. Jon looks at his hands. Then any man who swore under a name he was given rather than chosen could say the same. Any bastard in the north with a Snow surname he didn't pick could stand at a weirwood and swear watch vows and walk away whenever he liked. No, Ned says, because those bastards chose to go to the wall. They walked north, knowing what they were giving up. The name was theirs by custom, if not by choosing. He looks at Jon. You didn't walk north to give anything up. You walked north because I sent you somewhere safe when you were a child, and the watch was what was there. And the name you swore under was a lie I told the realm to keep you breathing. He stops. That is not the same thing. Jon does not answer right away. He thinks about the weirwood tree, the cold, the carved face in the bark. He had meant the oath. He had felt it land the way words land when they are the right words, each one settling into the person you have decided to be. And he had been glad that he was here, and not somewhere south, trying to be a lord's son in a castle where he was not entirely wanted. He had been glad to be a crow. He does not know what he is glad of now. It doesn't make what I swore into nothing, he says. No, Ned says. It doesn't. It makes it complicated. The wall settles above them and says nothing. Mormont comes to Jon that night, after the evening meal, and asks to speak with him alone. They stand in the yard with the fires burning behind the castle's windows, the wall at their backs, breathing cold into the dark, and the old Lord Commander speaks without preamble. The watch will not hold you to the oath, he says. That is my ruling as Lord Commander. It is not a precedent. I want that understood before anything else. It is a decision about one man, in one case, for one reason, and I will not have any brother use it to argue for a door that I am not opening. Jon waits. I have seen the dead walk, Mormont says. Not heard about it. Seen it in my own chambers with my own eyes, when a corpse that should have been still put its hands around my throat. He says it the way he says hard things, which is simply, without decoration. Something is coming from beyond the wall, something that has been building for a long time. When it arrives in force, the watch will need the north behind it. Men, food, castle gates opened, and ravens answered. We are not enough on our own. We have never been enough on our own. He looks at Jon steadily. If you go south and hold Winterfell and the north rallies to Ned Stark's declaration, the north will send us what we need. That is worth more to this watch than one steward who is good with a blade. You're trading me for provisions, Jon says. I am making a trade I would rather not make, because the watch needs the larger thing more than it needs the smaller one. There is no apology in Mormont's voice, and Jon does not expect one. The old man has made difficult decisions for longer than Jon has been alive, and has the particular steadiness of someone who has learned to pay the price of them without drama. That is the truth of it. I am not pretending otherwise. Jon looks at the wall. It is 700 feet of ice, black against the stars above the castle, and it has been standing for 8,000 years, and it will need the north behind it to stand another 8. He knows this. He has known it since the night a dead man came back and tried to kill the Lord Commander in his own bed. Long claw, Mormont says. Keep it. It was a Mormont blade, given to a Mormont's worth of man. Whatever name you carry, that hasn't changed. Jon puts his hand on the pommel, the white direwolf's head, carved where the bear used to be, and holds it for a moment, and says nothing. At first light he saddles a horse. Ghost is waiting at the stable door, already awake, already watching the yard with those red eyes that never seem to sleep. Jon leads the horse out, and Ghost falls in beside him, and the 2 stable hands who are up at this hour watch without saying anything and go back to what they were doing. Jon rides out the gate without looking back, but Ned is already at the top of the wall. He has gone up in the ice cage before dawn, 700 feet in the creaking dark, and he is standing now at the wall's edge with his black cloak pulled close and the wind coming off the ice from the north, and he is looking south. After a while there is a figure on the King's Road below, small with the distance, moving south at a steady pace, and a white shape moving beside it. He watches them until they become a grey dot. He watches until the grey dot becomes nothing. He doesn't wave. He is a black brother now. He holds nothing. He goes nowhere. He stands at the edge of the wall in the morning cold with the north at his back, and when the figure on the road is gone, he turns around, and he looks north instead. Whatever is coming from the dark, it is still out there. His watch has only just begun. The ravens start coming north the morning after the camp gets the news of Jon. Robb reads them standing, which is how he reads everything now. He used to sit in his father's chair at Winterfell and do it, but that chair is in Winterfell, and he is not, and he has not been in Winterfell in months, and besides, his father's chair is not his. He reads standing at the table in the centre of the tent, with the morning light coming grey through the canvas, and the camp awake outside, men moving and fires being stoked, and the ordinary sounds of an army that has been at war long enough to know its own rhythms, and he reads each letter twice. The first is from the Great Jon. It is short in the way that the Great Jon is short, which is to say it is not short at all, but it is direct. Lord Robb, it says, the ravens from Castle Black, tell us your brother Jon is Rhaegar's son out of Lyanna Stark. If this is true, and your lord father has vouched for it, then the boy is blood of the dragon and blood of the North, both, and there has been no name in the history of this world that carried both those things at once. Last Hearth will send its sons to whatever banner that boy raises. I trust you know what that means for how this war ought to go. Robb sets it on the table. The second is from White Harbour. Wyman Manderley writes at greater length, which Robb expected. Manderley writes with the careful precision of a man who has survived long enough to know that every word can be turned against him. The careful precision in this letter is that Manderley says nothing directly. He says the news from Castle Black has reached White Harbour and caused considerable discussion among the lords of the harbour and the city. He says he remembers Lyanna Stark very well, as he remembers all the Starks, and that he has prayed at the Sept and at the Godswood since the letter arrived, and his prayers have given him much to think on. He says White Harbour stands ready to support the Stark cause in whatever form that cause now takes. Robb reads that phrase twice. He reads it a third time, whatever form that cause now takes. He sets Manderley's letter on top of the Great Jon's and picks up the third. Lord Rickard Karstark writes that his sons Harrion and Torren are still held captive by the Lannisters, and that any action he takes will have to account for that, but that if Robb requires his sword or his counsel on the matter of Castle Black, he will come. The fourth is from Bear Island. 3 words in a woman's hand. Bear Island remembers. He stands there for a long while, with all 4 letters on the table in front of him, and the grey morning light on them, and the sounds of the camp outside. He had known this was coming. He had known it since the night Catelyn came into his tent, with her face arranged in the careful blankness she wears when she does not want him to see how much something has cost her. He had known it the way you know winter is coming, when the air changes and certain birds start moving south before the maester expects them. You know, you just have not decided what to do about knowing. The question he has been not quite asking himself for 2 days is simple, and he asks it now, alone in the tent with these letters in front of him. The question is, what does Robb Stark want? He is the king in the north. He declared himself that after Ned was taken, when the lords named him, and he accepted, because someone had to hold the army together. He has fought every battle since, and won most of them, and lost men he cannot get back, and he has done it in the name of northern independence and his father's honour. He has done it as the son of Ned Stark, which is a name worth fighting under. Jon Snow is not the son of Ned Stark. That is the thing that has been sitting underneath everything for 2 days, cold and patient. Jon is the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. He is not Ned's bastard, and never was. He is the true-born heir of Lyanna's body, which means he is the true heir of this war in ways that Robb is not, because this war began with Lyanna, and with what was done to her, and with what Ned spent 15 years protecting, and Jon is what Ned was protecting. Robb knows what the lords want. They want a king. They want one with the blood of the old kings of the north and the blood of the dragon both, wound together in a single name, and they will rally to that name in a way they have never quite rallied to Robb's. Robb's name was always the name of a boy who had been a boy when the war began. Jon's is something older and stranger, a name that binds the north to its own grief and to the dynasty it helped bring down, and there is a story in that which Robb cannot match. He does not resent Jon for any of it. He wants to make sure that is true before he decides anything. So he sits with it in the tent and tests it carefully. He finds that it is true. He does not resent Jon. He has never quite known what to make of Jon, but he has never resented him, not even when they were boys, and Jon was better with a sword, and Robb was supposed to be the heir, and Jon was supposed to be nobody. He had loved Jon then, with the particular love you have for someone you have grown up alongside, rough and unexamined and real. Jon with his dark hair and his grey, stark eyes, quiet in the yard in the mornings before anyone else was up, already practicing. He loves him now. The question is what that love requires. He picks up a quill. He sets it down. He picks up the great Jon's letter and reads it once more. I trust you know what that means for how this war ought to go. He does know. He calls for the Maester, and he writes 2 letters. The first is to the great Jon, and to every lord who has written, and to every lord he expects will write soon. It is short. It says the news from Castle Black is true, and was vouched for by Lord Eddard Stark personally, and witnessed by the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and that the Lord of Winterfell, named by Ned Stark before he took his oath, is the lawful lord of that castle and of the north, and that Robb Stark, king in the north, recognizes that claim in full. He is not certain, when he sets the quill down, what that letter means for his own title. It probably means the title will have to be reconsidered in a world where the Lord of Winterfell is a prince with dragon blood behind him and the North's own grief before him. He finds he does not mind the uncertainty as much as he expected. He has been carrying the weight of a crown on a head that was not sure it wanted one. It will be something, when the time comes, to set it down. The second letter is to Jon. He writes it twice, because the first version is too long, and the second version is still longer than he wants, so he reads it back to himself and strips out everything that is not necessary until what is left is short enough to say what he needs to say. Jon, it says, I know you took the oath. I know what an oath means to a Stark, which means I know what it costs to ask you what I am asking. But the North needs a lord in Winterfell. You are the Lord of Winterfell. Whatever the oath says and whatever the law says, you are who you are. The North knows it. I know it. Come home. He seals both letters. He gives them to the Maester. He stands alone in the tent for a moment after the Maester leaves and looks at the 4 letters still spread on the table. The great Jon's blunt words and Manderly's careful ones, and Karstark's reluctant ones, and Bear Island's 3, and then he goes outside, because there is still a war and an army waiting and work to be done. He carries the decision inside him as he walks, and it does not feel like loss. He had been afraid it would feel like loss, and it does not, which tells him something about what he has been wanting these past months that he had not quite let himself know. He has been wanting to put the war down. Not to lose it. To end it on terms that are his and not the Lannisters', and this, Jon on the seat of Winterfell with the blood of Rhaegar Targaryen behind him, and the whole of the North rallying to that name. This might be the terms. He does not know yet. There are many things he does not know yet. He walks through camp in the early morning, and his men see him passing, and they straighten, the way men straighten when a lord goes by, and something about him makes them stand up taller. He has always been slightly surprised by that they feel something when he passes, that whatever he is to them is enough to make them stand. He does not know what they see in him that makes them do it. He wonders what they will feel when they see Jon. The letter goes north with a raven, and 3 days later, Jon Umber, Lord of Last Hearth, stands in the great hall of his keep and reads the one that comes back. He has read a great many letters in his life, letters from other lords and from the crown and from tax collectors and from his sons and from the Night's Watch asking for men, and from men asking for money, and from maesters with news of weather and harvests and the movements of armies. He is not a man who much enjoys letters. He enjoys things you can put your hands on: stone, flesh, steel, the weight of a sword that has been in use long enough to wear the grip smooth, the heat from a fire when the wind is coming through the walls. These are real things. Letters are just promises that something real might happen. He reads this one standing at the long table in the middle of his hall, with the fire going on his left and the morning cold working through the window shutters on his right, and Mors and Hother waiting behind him the way they have always waited behind him when he is reading something important, which is patiently and in silence, and watching his back. They have been watching his back since he was a young man, and they will watch it until one of them is dead, and there are no more backs left to watch. This is understood between them, and has never needed saying. The letter comes from Castle Black, in the hand of the Lord Commander himself, Jor Mormont, whom the Great John has met twice in his life, and both times thought, "There is a man who does not say a thing unless he means it." The letter says what the ravens already said, which is that Jon Snow has taken the oath of the Night's Watch, has been told the truth of his blood, and is now a sworn brother who holds no lands and carries no banners. It says that Ned Stark, Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North until he gave both up, has taken the Black himself and is sworn to the same oath. And then the letter says the thing the ravens didn't say, that Ned Stark named Jon Snow heir to Winterfell before he swore, that the naming was witnessed by the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch and by several brothers of good standing, that the name used in that naming was not Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, sixth of his name, son of Rhaegar Targaryen, crown prince of the Seven Kingdoms, killed at the Trident, and son of Lyanna Stark, who was a North woman, born and raised, and who the Great John had seen once at a feast when she was perhaps 14 years old, wild-eyed and laughing at something her brother Ned had not laughed at. He remembers her clearly. He has always remembered her clearly, the way you remember people who are gone before their time, whose absence sits in the world like a hollow. She had the look of someone who was going to be difficult her whole life, and that had seemed like something worth seeing. She did not have a whole life to be difficult in. She had 17 years, maybe less, and she died at the end of Robert's Rebellion, in a place in Dorne whose name most people do not know, and she left behind a boy whose name most people did not know either. The Great Jon reads that name, and sets the letter on the table and walks to the window, and looks out at the grey sky over the north. He has looked at that sky his whole life. He looked at it from this window when he was a boy, and when his father was alive, and when his sons were born, and when his wife died, and in all the long, unremarkable time between. He has looked at it after battles and before funerals, and in the middle of nothing days, when there was no occasion at all for looking at it. He looks at it now, and it is the same sky it has always been, grey and cold and very large. Behind him, Mors says, "Well?" "Well," the Great Jon says. He turns around. He is a large man, and has been a large man his whole life, and it stopped frightening people some years ago, but it is still a fact about him. The way the hall is large, and the table is long, and the fire is built bigger than most men would bother to build it. He stands in his own hall, and picks up the letter, and reads it aloud to his uncles from beginning to end. The Lord Commander's greetings, the account of Ned's oath, the account of the naming, and the name. Mors says nothing for a moment. Hother says, "Old Jorah Mormont is not a man who writes that kind of thing unless he means it." "No," the Great Jon says. "He is not. Lord Stark vouched for it, gave his own life for it, taking the black. That is not the act of a man who is lying," the Great Jon says. "Ned Stark went south to do right by his king when he could have stayed north and kept his seat. He chose wrong there, and it cost him everything. But then he named the boy before he swore his oath, named him in front of witnesses, named him by a name that no one in the north has heard spoken in 16 years. You do not do that if you are lying. You do not do that if there is any doubt at all. Ned Stark does not do that." He sets the letter down. "If the boy is what they say," Hother says carefully, "then he is the rightful lord of Winterfell. And more than that," the Great Jon says, "his father was the heir to the Iron Throne. His mother was a Stark of Winterfell. The blood of 8,000 years of northern kings runs in him through her, and the blood of the dragon runs in him through Rhaegar. There has never been a name in this world that carried both those things at once." Mors crosses his arms. He is a hard old man, with a face like a closed fist, and he has not stayed alive this long by rushing into things. "He's sworn to the Watch," he says. "He was named before he swore," the Great Jon says. "His Lord Father named him before the oath was taken. Whether the oath voids the naming or the naming voids, the oath is a question for maesters and septons and men who care for such distinctions. I am not such a man. I am a man who knows what the North needs, and what the North needs right now is a lord in Winterfell with a name that means something, and banners to defend it." He looks at them both. They look back at him. He has known these men his whole life. He has fought beside them and drunk with them and sat in this hall through enough winters to lose count of winters. They are not men who need persuading to do a hard thing. They need to know what the hard thing is. "Robb Stark is a good young lord," the Great Jon says, "and I will ride beside him until I die, or he does. But Robb is not the blood of the old kings. He is Ned's son, and Catelyn Tully's, and the Tullys are Riverlanders, and they are fine people, but they are not what the North is. The blood of the first men does not run in them the way it runs in us, and it does not run in them the way it runs in that boy up at the wall, who has Lyanna Stark's northern blood in him alongside Rhaegar's fire. That boy is something the North has not had in 300 years. That boy is what the North has been waiting for without knowing it was waiting. Outside the window, the grey sky is the same sky it has always been. The North stretches away behind Last Hearth, vast and cold and utterly indifferent to the matters of men, and somewhere far beyond the wall, further north than any of them have ever ridden. Something is moving that the Great Jon's grandfather used to talk about in the old way, not as a story to frighten children, but as a fact you carry with you when you live close enough to the wall to feel its shadow in the mornings. Winter is coming, the Great Jon says. It is not his house's words, but it is the truest thing he knows. He picks up a quill. "Call the banners," he says, "and send a rider south to Lord Robb's camp. Tell him Last Hearth is moving north, and he should know where to find us." He writes his letter to Castle Black before the fire has burned down, which is fast work for a man who does not enjoy writing. But some things do not take much deliberation. Some things are simply the shape of what the world needs, as plain as stone, as plain as the grey sky outside his window that has been there since before any Umber drew breath, and will be there long after the last one is in the ground. He seals the letter and looks at it. He thinks about the boy at the wall in his black cloak, dark-haired and grey-eyed as any Stark, sworn to a brotherhood he cannot now hold, and a seat he cannot now refuse, standing somewhere at the edge of the ice and looking south. He thinks about what it will be like when that boy rides into Winterfell for the first time as its lord, and what it will sound like when the North gives him its name back. He hopes the boy is ready for it. He trusts that Ned Stark has been doing what Ned Stark does, which is prepare people quietly for hard things without letting them see the preparation until the moment arrives. He trusts that the boy has been told what is coming. He hopes the telling has been enough. He gives the letter to his maester and goes to find his sons. The ravens start arriving the second week. Jon knows what they are before Mormont shows him. He can feel them coming the way you feel weather changing before the clouds arrive. Some shift in the air that the wall seems to amplify and clarify into something almost legible. He has been here long enough now to know its rhythms. He knows the particular quiet of dawn before the watch changes, the cadence of boots on the ice cage elevator going up and coming down, the sound of the forge in the armory in the early afternoon. He knows the calls from the rookery that mean messages going out, and the different calls that mean messages coming in. He knows the difference. This week is a different week. He has been doing his work. That is the thing he holds on to. On the mornings when the weight of what he is settles on him too heavily, and he cannot feel the edges of himself. He does his work. He carries messages. He sharpens blades in the armory and helps with the evening accounts, and brings Mormont his breakfast, and learns the names of the men in his rotation, and attends to all the small labor that keeps the watch alive and functioning in its cold and ancient place. He does it with his hands, and he does it well enough, and it is not nothing. It is, in fact, exactly what he swore to do. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. He meant those words when he said them. He still means them. He is not sure whether meaning them makes this easier or harder. Mormont shows him on a Tuesday, or what passes for a Tuesday at the wall, where the days lose their individual character under the same grey sky. He takes Jon to the rookery alone. He spreads the letters on the table the way a maester spreads his instruments before a procedure, which is deliberately and with attention to order. The letters are not long. The men who write them are not men who need many words to say a hard thing. Jon reads them in the order Mormont has set them out. There are 9. The Great Jon's is the first. It is exactly the kind of letter the Great Jon would write, which is forceful and direct, and not particularly concerned with the finer points of law or vow. It says that if Ned Stark vouched for the blood, then the blood is real, and that Last Hearth will follow that name wherever it goes. The second is from White Harbour, in Wyman Manderley's careful merchant's hand, which says nothing directly and everything indirectly, which is exactly how Manderley always writes. There is a Karstark letter, written by someone other than the Lord, formal and hedged by mention of captive sons. There is Bear Island, which is 3 words, and a seal pressed so hard the wax is thin at the edges. The rye swells, the Dustins, a lord from somewhere in the western hills, whose house Jon does not recognize, who writes in the patient script of a man who has learned his letters late and uses them carefully, that he will follow whatever name the blood of Lyanna Stark carries into the world. He reads that last one twice. He does not know the name. He does not know this lord or this house or this western corner of the land he is supposed to hold. He will have to learn it. And then there is Robb's letter, which Mormont sets apart and says is for Jon alone. Jon puts it in his pocket without reading it. He reads everything else. He reads it all twice, and then sets it back on the table and looks at the 9 letters spread out in front of him. 9 lords and holders and heads of houses. 9 men who heard the news and wrote immediately, before it could settle or shift, before anyone could argue them out of it or into doubt. 9 men deciding, in their separate halls and keeps, that whatever the oath said, and whatever the law said, this was the shape of the thing, and they were going to stand in it. "There will be more," Mormont says. "Yes," Jon says. "Men are moving. Not yet in force, but the ravens are only the beginning. Letters come first, and then riders come. And when the riders come, they will come here, because this is where you are." Jon looks at the table. He does not look at Mormont. "I am sworn to the watch," Jon says. "You were named before you swore," Mormont says. It is the same thing he said 3 days ago, when the first letters started coming, and the same thing Jon has been not answering in his head ever since, turning it over and over, the way you turn over a stone to see what is living underneath it. "Your father named you in front of witnesses," Mormont says. "Lord Commander Jeor Mormont of the Night's Watch witnessed it. That naming is not a small thing, and it did not happen by accident." "And the oath?" Jon says. "The oath is the oath," Mormont says. "I will not pretend otherwise. You stood in the circle and said every word of it, and you meant them. I heard you mean them. The rookery is quiet around them. It smells of birds and old wood and cold stone, and the cold at the wall is specific, more specific than cold anywhere else Jon has been, a cold that has its own character and weight. He has come to know it well in his weeks here. He has come to know a great many things about this place, and he is standing now in the room he knows best, where the Watch's messages go out, and the world's messages come in, and the world is sending messages that he does not know how to answer. The Watch has always held, Mormont says, that a man compelled to swear under unlawful duress carries no binding oath. A slave's oath made under threat is not an oath the Watch recognizes. But you were not compelled. No, Jon says, I was not. So I cannot find you a way out of your oath that does not cost you something, Mormont says. What I can tell you is what is happening south of this wall. The north is looking for a lord. Your father left it without one. He named you before he swore, and the lords of the north know it now because I told them. And they are deciding what to do with that knowledge. Whatever they decide is going to arrive here. I thought you should know what was already coming before it came. Jon picks up Rob's letter. He holds it without opening it, feeling the wax seal under his thumb. What do you want me to do? He says. Mormont looks at him for a long moment. He has the look that long command gives a man, the look of someone who has spent years deciding things and bearing the weight of those decisions after the deciding is done. He looks at Jon with something in his face that is not quite pity and not quite pride, and sits between the two, the way most honest things sit between the names for them. I am not the man who gets to want anything from you, Mormont says, except that you think carefully. The Watch needs men. The thing beyond this wall is still out there, and it still needs the Watch to have men in it. That is the only weight I have on one side of this, and I will not pretend it weighs more than what the North is asking. He leaves Jon alone with the letters. Jon stands in the rookery for a while. He opens Rob's letter, which he has been not opening since Mormont set it apart an hour ago. It is shorter than he expected. Robb was never a man of few words when words were available to him, and the shortness of this letter tells Jon something about what it cost him to write it. Jon, it says, I know you took the oath. I know what an oath means to a Stark, which means I know what it costs to ask you what I am asking. But the North needs a lord in Winterfell. You are the lord of Winterfell. Whatever the oath says and whatever the law says, you are who you are. The North knows it. I know it. Come home. Come home. He reads it a second time. He folds it and puts it back in his pocket. He looks out the rookery's narrow window at the sky above the wall, which is white-grey and absolute. The same sky every morning since he came here, and somewhere past it the thing that Mormont talks about in the evenings is moving in the dark. He does not doubt that it is moving. He has felt it up on the top of the wall, the quality of the wind from the north, which is colder than cold in a way that is not only temperature. Something is in it. He does not know how to explain that to anyone who has not stood up there in the mornings and felt it, and he does not try. He puts the 9 letters together carefully and leaves them on the table for Mormont to keep. He does not need them. He has read them, and they are in him now, along with everything else that is in him, which is a great deal for a boy who has only been at the wall 2 weeks and who has only had his name for 1. He takes one thing with him when he goes. Not the letters, not Robb's note, which is already in his pocket. The thing he takes is a feeling, which is the feeling of a decision that has been building in him for 2 weeks, like water against a dam, and which is not going to hold much longer, regardless of what he does or does not choose. He goes to find his father. He hears Jon's boots on the steps before the door opens. He has been waiting for the sound of them since Tuesday. Ned Stark sits in the small room they gave him at Castle Black, which is a steward's room, and is appropriate for what he is now, which is a steward, and not much more. The room has a table and a single chair, and a fire that is never quite warm enough, which is how fires at the wall always are, warm in front and cold behind, the warmth only reaching as far as the stone will let it. He has been sitting at the table with his hands on his knees for the better part of an hour. He is good at waiting. He has spent a great deal of his life getting better at it. Jon comes in and closes the door behind him. He is wearing black. He has the look of someone who has been wearing it long enough that it has stopped being new, which is the look Ned was hoping to see, and knew he would see, and finds, when he sees it, still costs him something. He is wearing his watch blacks, and he is standing in a watch steward's room, and he is carrying a name that Ned gave him 2 weeks ago in this same castle, and the 2 things sit on him like weather sits on a landscape, quietly and absolutely. Sit down, Ned says. Jon sits. He is 16 years old, and he is not a boy in any way that matters. War ages people. The wall ages people. Hard truths age people faster than either. His face is his mother's face, in the shape of it, the jaw and the brow, and he has Lyanna's grey eyes that are stark grey, the same grey Ned sees in the glass, and in Robb, and in all the Starks who ever lived, and none of that is what Rhaegar Targaryen looked like. Jon looks like what he is, which is Lyanna's son and Ned's foster child, and a boy from the north. He does not look like a king. He will. You read them, Ned says. All of them, Jon says. And Robb's. I know what Robb says. He wrote to me before he sent it. Jon looks at him. He does not say anything. I know what you are going to ask me, Ned says. And I know what I am going to tell you, which is that I cannot make this choice for you. I can tell you what I did and why I did it. I can tell you everything that led to this room and this conversation. But the choice you are facing is yours. I named you. I told the lords of the North what you are. I gave you everything I had the right to give. I did not make the choice that comes after. You knew they would come, Jon says. Yes, Ned says. I knew they would come. Jon looks at his hands. He has always gone still when he is thinking, since he was a small boy in the yard at Winterfell, when Sir Roderick would stop correcting his stance and simply wait, because he knew that the stillness meant something worth waiting for was happening behind those eyes. He is still now. The fire pops and settles. The wall's cold comes through the stone steadily, the cold that is always there at the wall, regardless of how well you build the fire, the cold that belongs to this place, the way ice belongs to the wall itself. You made me a steward, Jon says. Mormont made you a steward, Ned says. I did not ask him to. But you knew what it would mean, Jon says. You knew what they would ask when the letters went south. You let me swear the oath, anyway. Ned is quiet for a moment. He has thought about how to answer this for 2 weeks, sitting in this room or walking the yard in the early mornings when the watch was changing and the castle was quiet. He has not found a version that costs nothing, so he tells the truth plainly. I needed you to swear, he says, not for the watch, for you. If you had come south before you swore, if you had come south immediately when you learned your name, you would have come as a boy with a claim and nothing behind it. A claim needs weight. The Night's Watch oath is weight. It says you know what duty costs, and you paid that cost even when you did not have to, even when there was a castle waiting, and a name waiting, and 9 lords already writing letters. It says you are not a man who runs toward easy things. Breaking an oath is not easy, Jon says. No, Ned says. It is not. You did not break yours, Jon says. You are still here. Ned looks at his son. He has thought about this part most of all, the shape of what he needs to say, and he has found only one way to say it. My oath and your oath are not the same oath, he says. I swore the oath of the Night's Watch as Ned Stark, who was Lord of Winterfell, who had already given Winterfell away before he swore. The giving was real. The oath was real. Both things can be real, and both things can stand. A man can hold nothing and still have named who will hold it. But I cannot hold both, Jon says. No, Ned says, you cannot. So you are telling me to break my oath. I am telling you, Ned says carefully, that the oath you swore was a gift you made to the North. You gave everything you were, and everything you might have been to this wall and this watch, and you meant every word of it. I heard you mean it. And now the North is asking for something larger than what you gave. Only you can decide whether that asking is worth the cost of answering. The fire settles. Outside the window, the sky is the grey it is always at the wall, impersonal and absolute, and somewhere in the rookery above them, a raven calls once and goes quiet again. If I go, Jon says, what happens here? The watch keeps watching, Ned says. What is coming from the North will come regardless of what either of us does. The watch will face it with fewer men than they need, the way they have always faced everything, and they will face it. They would have 1 fewer man, Jon says. Yes, Ned says. They would. There is no version of this that does not cost something. Jon looks at the fire. He has the look of a man who has already decided, and is working out the shape of the decision rather than the decision itself. Ned knows this look. He has worn it himself. Winterfell will need a garrison, Jon says. A maester. A steward who knows the accounts. A dozen other things I don't know how to do. You will learn, Ned says. I learned them. You are better suited to it than I was at your age. You learned without knowing what you were, Jon says. Yes, Ned says, and I was not the son of a king when I started. They sit for a long while with the fire between them. Somewhere below, the watch is changing, boots on stone in the corridor, the Black brothers going to their posts, as they go to their posts every hour and have done for 8,000 years. The wall is a world with its own rhythms, and Jon has learned all of them in his weeks here. He is going to leave. Ned is going to stay. That is the shape of the thing they have made. Jon stands. He stands at the door for a moment with his back to Ned, his hand on the frame. Ned looks at the back of his head and sees Lyanna there, the way he has always seen her there. The particular angle of the neck and the set of the shoulders when he is carrying something. He has always looked for Lyanna in Jon and always found her, and it has always cost him something. He has learned to pay that cost quietly, which is the only way to pay it. I will think on it, Jon says. He says it the way a man says a thing he has already decided. Ned listens to his boots on the stairs until the sound is gone, and there is only the fire and the wall's cold silence. He sits for a while without moving. He has given everything he had to give. He named Jon before witnesses. He sent the letters. He brought the North's eyes to the wall, to this boy in black who does not yet know how to carry what he is. He puts his hands on his knees. He thinks about Lyanna. He thinks about the tower in dawn and the smell of blood and the light that was already going from her eyes when she told him what the boy's name was supposed to be, the name she had chosen, and asked him to promise. He promised her. He kept that promise for 16 years in a world that did not know he was keeping it, in a world that believed a different story, and now the keeping is over, and the promise has been delivered, and what Lyanna asked him to protect has been given back to the world she wanted it for. He made the boy. He brought him north, and raised him, and loved him the way a man loves the child who is not his, and who is entirely his at the same time, which is a particular kind of love that has no clean name. He kept him safe, and now he has given him back. It is enough. He is still here, and that is enough. And the fire is not quite warm enough, and Ned Stark sits at his table in the cold and watches it burn. He leaves before first light. He has been awake since the middle of the night, which is not unusual at the wall where sleep is irregular and the cold finds the gaps. He lies on his cot and looks at the ceiling and thinks about the oath. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. He knows every word of it. He said it in the circle, and he meant it, and he will mean it for the rest of his life, which is what oaths are, the ones that matter. That is the thing he wants to be clear about in his own mind before he goes. He is not leaving because the oath didn't mean anything. He is leaving because it meant enough. He gets up in the dark and dresses by memory. He takes Longclaw from the wall where it hung. He takes Robb's letter from the table and puts it inside his cloak. These are the things he carries out. Everything else in the room belongs to the watch. He goes to Mormont first. Mormont is awake, which Jon expected. The Lord Commander pours 2 cups of wine without being asked, and they sit for a while without speaking, the way they have sometimes sat in the evenings when there was nothing to say, and the company was enough. I am going, Jon says. Yes, Mormont says. I will come back, Jon says. When what is coming comes, I will come back. Mormont looks at him for a moment. There is a thing I want you to know. Jon waits. You would have been a fine brother, Mormont says. one of the best this watch has seen. I want you to know it, because I think you may not believe it, and I want you to carry it with you, whatever else you carry." Jon looks at the wine. He does not trust his voice for a moment. "The thing beyond the wall," Jon says, "will still be there," Mormont says. "When you are sitting in Winterfell trying to learn your seneschal's name, the thing will still be out there, and when it comes, you will need to be something larger than a crow to face it. A lord with banners behind him, a name that the North will follow into the dark. That is what you can be for this wall that you cannot be if you stay." Jon finishes his wine. He stands. Mormont stands with him, which is not his habit in the evenings, and Jon understands that he is being seen off, and that Mormont doesn't do this for many people. "Take Ghost," Mormont says. The wall unsettles him. He has always been meant for somewhere with more room to run. Ghost is waiting at the bottom of the stairs. He is sitting in the dark of the yard, a white shape against the black stone. And when Jon comes down, the last step, Ghost turns and walks toward the gate without being told. Jon follows him across the yard. The castle is quiet at this hour. A few guards on the wall above, the sound of boots somewhere in the main hall. Nothing else. The wall stands in the dark behind him, enormous and silent, doing the thing it was built to do. His father is waiting in the yard. Ned stands by the gate in his black cloak with his hands at his sides, the way he has always stood in every kind of weather, still and patient and present. He looks older than Jon remembers him looking in the yard at Winterfell, older in a way that is not only time, but the specific weight of the thing he carried and has now set down. Jon stops in front of him. He does not know what to say. He has been trying to find the right thing since last night, and nothing he found was right. So he says nothing. He stands close enough to see Ned's face in the cold dark, and Ned looks at him the way he has always looked at him, the look that Jon spent years trying to read, and finally stopped trying to read and just accepted, like weather, like the cold. He understands it now. He has understood it for 2 weeks, since the night in the rookery when Mormont told him what he was. He understands what it cost his father to look at him that way every day for 15 years without explaining it, without letting the truth of it show in his face where the wrong eyes might see it. Ned puts a hand on his shoulder. His grip is the same grip Jon has known his whole life. "Go up to the top first," Ned says. "Look at it once, then go south." Jon takes the ice cage elevator up alone, in the slow, grinding way of it, watching the ground fall away below him and the sky open above. He has been up here before. He comes up here in the evenings when the work is done, and there is nothing left to do but stand in the cold and look north. He comes up now in the last dark before dawn, and stands on the top of the wall in the wind and looks north one more time. It is vast. He has never found a word for how vast it is. The north stretches away from the wall in all directions at once, not just in miles, but in something else, in the way it makes you feel your own smallness not as a threat, but as a plain fact, absolute and strangely peaceful. He has stood up here enough times to stop being frightened by that feeling and start being educated by it. The world is this large. The thing in the dark out there is this serious. A man is this small. And the wall is what stands between the small thing and the large one. Something is moving out there. He cannot see it and cannot hear it, but he can feel it in the wind, the way you feel the edge of a fire you cannot see. A change in the quality of the air that is colder than cold in a way that is not only temperature. It has always been out there. It was there before Jon Snow came to this wall, and it will be there after Jon Snow has spent his life in Winterfell, and one day it will come south, and the wall will be all that stands between it and everything south of here. He looks at it until he has really seen it. Then he turns around. South is where the dawn is starting, pale at the edge of the hills, grey-pink and slow. The King's Road cuts south through the country below the wall, barely visible in the early light, a dark line running away toward the world. He has ridden that road going north. He will ride it going south now. The northern riders are waiting at the bottom. 6 men with grey and white Stark banners, sent north by Robb to escort him. They have been at Castle Black for 2 days, patient and quiet, stabling their horses and eating at the watchers' table and waiting the way northern men wait when they know what they are waiting for is worth the wait. They are saddling in the half-light when Jon comes down. Ghost moves ahead of him, and the horses shift at the direwolf's approach, and one of the men murmurs to his horse and looks at Jon. "My lord," the lead rider says. He is a man in his 30s with a long northern face and no ceremony in him, which Jon appreciates. Jon stops for a moment. He looks at the wall behind him. He looks at the banners. He looks at Ghost sitting between him and the gate, with his white tail curled around his paws and his red eyes patient. He is 16 years old, and he does not know how to be what they are asking him to be. He does not know the names of half the lords who wrote. He does not know the accounts at Winterfell, or the state of its garrison, or the names of the people who have kept it running in the years since he was last inside its walls. He does not know what it will feel like to sit in his father's chair, which is his chair now, under the banners of his house. He is going to learn. He mounts. Ghost falls into position beside him without being told. The gate opens. The King's Road is grey and cold and very long, and somewhere at its far end, 400 miles south through the winter-brown country, Winterfell is waiting with its high grey walls, and its godswood, and its fires burning through the dark, and the accounts he has never seen, and the lords coming to swear, and the name he is only beginning to learn how to carry. He rides through the gate. He does not look back at the wall. He has already looked at it. He has looked at it and understood it, and he carries it with him now the way he carries the oath, not as a burden, but as a fact about who he is, as fixed as his dark hair and his grey eyes, and the blood of the north that runs in him alongside everything else. He carries all of it south. Ghost runs at his knee. The King's Road opens. The dawn comes up over the hills in the way it comes up over the north in winter, slow and grey and very far. Jon Snow rides